Welcome to the Voices for Voices podcast, sponsored by Redwood Living. Thank you for joining us today. I am Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, host, and Humanitarian. You can learn more about Voices for Voices on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and our website, voicesforvoices.org. Voices for Voices is a 501c3 nonprofit charity organization that survives solely on donations. So if you're able to, please consider heading over to our website to help us continue our mission and the goal and dream to help 3 billion people over the course of my lifetime and beyond. Please join me in welcoming today's guest, Daniel Henderson. Thank you for joining me today. We're so excited to have you, Daniel. For our audience is in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he has quite the experience and stories to share, and it very much fits in with the Voices for Voices mission, vision, and wanting to just help people. So Daniel, thank you for joining us today. And if you want to maybe just start from the beginning and share a story. I know it's going to be very impactful for our audience.
Well, thank you for having me, Justin. And I guess Rebecca connected us. So, but yeah, I'm excited to be here. And yeah, I don't know, I've in long-term recovery from addiction, mental health, and a traumatic brain injury. TBI actually happened drunk, actually happened in sobriety. But yeah, I struggled with just from the time I was a little kid being hyperactive to having self-esteem issues and dealing with anxiety, depression, all through elementary school. Then it got heightened to junior high. They got really bad in high school, and a lot of self-esteem and stuff going on. And I, had girls messing with my head. That was in high school, I guess. And I just turned to drugs and alcohol, and I started to cope with my mental health conditions and some other stuff through that. Couldn't stop. Partying. I mean, I definitely had my fair share of fun, don't get me wrong. But by junior year, it was like, okay, I'm smoking weed every day. I'm not going to school. I stopped playing soccer. I could have played D1 college. One state size for freshman and sophomore year. I mean, I was bright. My grades were like 2.0. So it was getting bad, and then started going through psych units, stealing money to get high and drunk. And then just stopped showing up to school. Started to go through treatment centers and spent a couple of days in jail for stealing a case of Corona. And I eventually agreed after a couple of treatment centers and several outpatients to go to treatment in California. And got sober out there on March 6, 2015. Got everything's great, built a life for myself, had a ton of fun living on the West Coast for a year and a half. From like 18 to 20, I lived out there, and then I ended up back in treatment sober. I was sober, but I got diagnosed with bipolar 1. And that ended, I can see now looking back at high school, all those mood swings and the manic depression to the mania of just like full of energy, and then even a sobriety. I mean, I could ride a longboard 5 miles to work, surf all day, have a ton of fun, then work an 8-hour, 10-hour restaurant shift and ride 5 miles on a skateboard home and do it again and again and again on like very little sleep, like 3 hours of sleep. And I could just keep doing that. It sounds bipolar, bipolar. After I got healthy, I got that treated. it's some trauma I worked through and treatment at Discover Center, New Roads Behavioral Health in Salt Lake. And I got sober at Balboa Horizons in California. Great program, all three great programs. I life's good. I went back to work in the field of mental health because I started my career in California. Um, and I was it was my day off. I went hiking, and the ground broke beneath my feet because it was thawing, and I fell with it 200 feet, um, 200 feet off a cliff in Salt Lake City, Utah, on March 30th of 2018. And it wasn't vertical, but it was like in total, I was hitting stuff and whatnot. I don't remember any of it. My friend Wes, who was with me, straight to search and rescue, is with the right person. Called 911, search and rescue came to me. I got air flight out of a canyon. I broke 7 ribs, a lot of other stuff, 2 collapsed lungs. They cut up my chest, the side of the road, um, to inflate my lungs with oxygen. Got in the helicopter, got to the hospital, had cardiac arrest. When I got there, I had a stroke. They brought me back to life with paddles and chest compressions. And then I was in a coma for a month because I have a traumatic brain injury. I structurally damaged my brain. So then after I got out of the coma, basically it was like relearn everything. Tie my shoes, eat, go to the bathroom. I had to relearn how to have a filter, which was great. I mean, I was born without one, but I guess it got a little worse. But now it's pretty much back to normal to what it was, which still could have used some work when I was born. But I guess that's my personality, offbeat sense of humor. But yeah, I mean, you just say anything that comes to your mind with the traumatic brain injury. The great thing is you don't get in trouble when you say inappropriate stuff, which is like almost everything at that point. But yeah, I realized I was gonna be. I fell off a cliff on March 30th of 2018. In July, I could run. I went to Chicago to Shirley Ride Ability Lab in July. I was starting to work my mile time because my uncle kept calling me a grandma because I was walking slow and he's a cocky athlete. But I'm like, dude, I just fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to beat you in a mile. So I started working my mile time after I was in PT, speech, and OT all day. And then I was like, I can make a great story out of this. So I'm going to film my recovery, start to speak at treatment centers to show the people they can stay sober through anything. So I did that. And then I was like, I graduated treatment for a traumatic brain injury. I went back home. I was still pretty out of it, exhausted all the time. I had a couple of seizures due to a traumatic brain injury, so I couldn't drive. I also had no money, no car. So my memory was shot. And if you just like spoke with me, you could probably tell something was off. You might be able to tell now at times, like affect. There are certain things that are just different. So I bust tables. I got a job next to my parents' house, bust tables for like 3 years, while doing building a nonprofit and developing price packages and licensing and speaking all over the country. And then I got a job doing business development for New Roads Behavioral Health. And during that time, um, I still was filming all of my recovery. I was helping a lot of people, traveling over the country speaking. I mean, it's a great story. And I mean, I would walk miles to networking events.
Wow.
I had no car. I really wanted to do this, but I also did it for accountability. I mean, when I'm helping people get into treatment and holding them accountable, they're like, oh, I can't make it to a meeting because I don't have a car and it's like drizzling and it's like 30 degrees out. But I'm like, yet again, you walked in 10 degrees weather 2 miles to get heroin. I'm sure you could figure it out. So the aspect of starting a business without a car license after falling 200 feet off a cliff while having seizures, and taking the bus, lifts, Ubers, and catching rides, or even riding a bike. Um, and walking is great for accountability. It could definitely call you on your shit. I have all the excuses to get high, but I made something out of it. Bad situation. So um, I also wanted to through entrepreneurship, education, positive community development, such as sober bars, creating opportunities for people like internships. I would take volunteers all the time through my nonprofit Recover Wise to connect them to career opportunities and give them recommendations um, that I could create opportunity for myself. And it worked. Now my phone rings too much. Um, and I'm exhausted half the time. So I just kept at it, and I got to school studying psychology. I just finished my certified case manager and interventionist certificate. I got a lot of CEUs in dialectical behavioral therapy. I'm certified for crisis intervention and prevention, and got my professional adult crisis training certificate. And now I'm getting my drug and alcohol counselor certificate. I think my addiction studies certificate paid by the state of Ohio because they recognize this.
Wow.
Um, and I also have my done some freelance social media marketing and business development for uh, smaller companies and restaurants. Fell into the realm of event planning from taking alcohol to bars, putting mocktails in, having sober bars and the branding, the marketing, getting the press, bringing people from the country to do stuff at events. Um, my goal since I was born was to be an entrepreneur. I mean, this is not just behavioral health. These skill sets could translate to any field. So I mean, to be a good entrepreneur, I always got to think about how to evolve, think 5 years ahead, be ahead of the competition. Someone's going to disrupt behavioral health, like Lyft and Uber did to taxis. So I'm like, well, when that comes along, I might be out of a job. So I'm already looking at other aspects of taking my skill set for sales and business development into other fields and thinking about some other companies I want to start up here soon. So, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, the story of just the traumatic things you've been through, your body's been through, your mind's been through. Uh, and I know we've talked previously about, why you do what you do. And it's like, well, you know what, that's kind of the choice I have. Like, I don't have another choice. Either don't move forward and help, or I can't continue forward. For those listening, viewing, that may be going through something similar, maybe not as with the fall in Utah, but is going through high school, going through school, going through some of those tough times. Are there any not tips or tricks, but just things that you recognize that maybe back then that if you did something a little differently or you talked to somebody, is there anything that you think that could help someone else that potentially would be in your position?
Acceptance and don't be ashamed of it. Like, yeah, I have a traumatic brain injury. Things are different. I have to accept that if I don't, I'm going to be fighting an uphill battle the rest of my life and nothing's going to get better. So they kept saying when I was in treatment for a TBI, accommodations, accommodations, accommodations. Then I went to work so I knew that and I have one, but I also worked in community mental health at Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health Services for 7 months. And I was working with a lot of people with developmental disabilities, along with they also had addiction and mental health conditions. And I mean, they had a hard time conceptually understanding certain things or being on time, or they needed the same, very similar accommodations that I do. They also had a lot of times lack of a filter. And I'm like, working with people with disabilities, then doing volunteer work with people with TBI and learning and developmental disabilities now on my free time, like it's really true. Finding the right accommodations uh, for you is going to be key. My accommodations might be different than yours, and that's okay. You want to find what works for you. I use Google Calendar
Okay.
so much because it like if you have Gmail, it'll transfer to any if you have internet, it'll go over to any device, or data, alarms, all of that. I don't miss appointments that much anymore because of accommodating, especially technology helps.
Wow. Yeah. So, how does it make you feel? Like when you're helping others, when you're helping somebody find treatment, go through the program, or even just like having this conversation today. Like, I know for myself, it's just it makes you feel good because you're talking about things that are important and hopefully resonating with others, and it kind of pumps you up as far as taking, for me, taking that energy of the drugs and alcohol and putting it to kind of a good use. So how does that make you feel for an individual out there that might be like, oh yeah, well like that's not fun, that yeah I can't have as much fun, whether it's partying or fulfilling what we want to do in life. Is there anything that you can share with that kind of like how it makes you feel and how that feeling is part of what helps you continue to do what you're doing?
Well, it hasn't been easy. 5 treatment centers, 3 suicide attempts, several psych units, a couple days in jail for
Hmm.
stealing a case of beer, uh, and falling 200 feet off a cliff, 3 seizures, uh, more 80-hour weeks than I would like to count, working some 100-hour weeks. But I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and I saw not all of it, but a lot of it. And now I'm just learning. But what I want to really show is like, hey, I was that person with the disability. I was the person with the addiction, mental health problem. But look, I am on the other side of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm cured because these are chronic conditions, addiction, mental health, and TBI, all chronic. Um, but I've made a life worth living for myself through the advances in science, accommodations, work ethic, doing the right thing, and through a good support system. And I want to be an example to show people that they could do it too. Um, and give them the right route to be smart about their recovery so they can do that. One of the people that's made a big name for themselves in Cincinnati throughout the country is Joe Burrow,
Yeah.
quarterback for the Bengals. He comes from southeastern Ohio. It's ravaged by the opioid epidemic and poverty. And he'll talk about a lot about how he wants to be an example to that community because he grew up there. And he's like, look, I could have gone down certain routes, but I the quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals switched to the Super Bowl. He's like my age, 26. So I would like to be a powerful example just like that.
Can you touch on some of the neat people that you mentioned? Joe Burrows, and I know there might be some collaboration sometime in the future, but through your recovery, your growth, your outreach, can you maybe touch on like some of the cool people that you've been able to touch base with and talk about things?
I've met Hayden Hurst, who's the starting tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals. Um, he's actually in recovery. I think he has like 7 or 8 years sober, but he's for mental health was his thing, and he was like, I just want to quit drinking too.
Yeah.
I don't know his whole story, but from what he's told me and his foundation does from his mom, they're more primary mental health with like depression, stuff like that. But he was super cool to meet. He's like 3 times the size of me.
I
He was
just,
super he was super cool. Yeah, his mom is they're both down to earth, Kathy and Hayden. Kathy runs his foundation, the Hayden Hurst Foundation. Um, they're really cool people. I met a lady named Donna Pike, and she started a sober living, a transitional living called St. Zachary's Haven out in Hamilton Township, which is north of Cincinnati, like 45 minutes. And it's a transitional living with a farming component. It's faith based, but they're also going to drive it with results and science. Um, and it's a Christian faith based. Um, and it's beautiful. The bike trail, love the bike trail. Also, there's the Little Miami Bike Trail sits right behind it. The Little Miami River is right behind it. There's gonna be, I mean, pretty much like I think a lot of the stuff you eat is what you work on at the farm. Incorporate farming, which getting you back to life. There might be equine, there's gonna be goats, all sorts of cool animals. Um, it's gonna be individualized. It's not a treatment center, it's a transitional living with outpatient services. So it's like next step to get back to life with more structure instead of just breathalyze and pee clean. It's more like, hey, let's help you get those life skills to get back to life, get you some money in your savings account, teach you a budget, get you back to school, get you that job. So really well structured transitional living. It is a nonprofit, it's free of charge for everyone who stays there.
wow.
Yeah, so I've met them. Oh, I met a lady named Layla Preisinger. That is she's been super cool, super nice to me. I that was Rick Liam's executive assistant. She just left like a year ago from Landry's.
Okay.
That's the largest restaurant and hospitality company in the world. She worked with Tillman Fertitta, the CEO, a lot. So I have developed a high involvement with restaurants locally and throughout the country to help address the addiction and mental health problem in the restaurant hospitality industry. So I was like, I want to. Landry's probably isn't a play assistance program, so I've been working on that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I've gotten one call from Houston, their corporate headquarters, but she broke down corporate and how it all works, and yeah, so we're working on that. Jose Salazar, who's the owner of Mita's Goose and Elder, Salazar, and partial owner of Daylily with Deep Roots Coffee, and he was the Joe Burrow's chef. He's in recovery from addiction. He's super nice, super cool. He has like 4 years, I think, sober. Donates cash and food to my nonprofit. So when I have events, I'll get some food from like Mita's or one of his restaurants sometimes. And he's just been super nice. He knows a lot of people, but if you're cooking for the Cincinnati quarterback and you own 4 restaurants in downtown Cincinnati, you're gonna know some people. So he's got me connected in the restaurant industry and known throughout Cincinnati, which has been a big help.
So as we think kind of just a little bit broadly, so take in kind of that world view, what's your thought on corporations and companies? How are they doing with burnout and being able to just manage their mental health And just with your experience with what you're doing, I know there's a ton of work that needs to be done, but just real interested to get your experience and your thoughts just on that.
Just like companies in general.
Yeah.
Um, that's more of like a case by case basis.
Yeah.
So if you go into like one of the reasons why I bussed tables at McCormick and Schmick's for like a year because um I was a little still out of it for a brain injury. This was like 3 years out. But I went to that restaurant specifically with my restaurant experience. I could work anywhere in the city. And then with the events, I mean, the news, it helps. But because they were owned by Landry's, I mean, company culture is excellent. Management was excellent. They made it feel like a second home. They accommodated to everything. They, with a brain injury, memory loss, working too much, I get tired because of neurological fatigue. They made the hours work for me. So finding a company like that is hard, can be. So like Landry's, Kroger, Target, I mean, all those companies are known for excellent work atmospheres. But they're in the workforce. Yeah, there could be high burnout rates in certain fields, especially mental health. I mean, it's hard to find a good treatment center to send your loved one to or to go to personally, but to work at, it seems like it's just as hard. High burnout, not effective care, unethical stuff, um, lack of open-mindedness to change. What we're doing is people think may be working, but it's not. I mean, if you look at the numbers on a national level, we need to do something different, both from a societal government standpoint, the way we address these issues, from a clinical,
Yeah.
from a whole political, vocational, recreational, everything. We need to relook at the way we're treating addiction from a treatment standpoint, and then from a government standpoint in the United States.
Yeah, I know from my experience and thought, cannot agree with you more with the treatment centers of where to send a loved one, and then more kind of internally of going through my recovery. And I love the way you said it. Recovery is a process. It's not something that like, okay, today you're better, I'm better, and so we can move on. And I know with your loved ones, sometimes I've had to battle with that. Like, oh, okay, well you're better now because you're doing these things. It's like, well, there are days that are much better, but overall, it's still a work in process. And that's kind of my thought with. I've thought about going into the mental health care field and potentially being a psychiatrist or a therapist. But I think that, at least for me, I would bring all those things, all those stories home, and I kind of feel like I have enough kind of with myself that it'd be hard to be able to compartmentalize and to give the help. And I look at even like doctors or people to work at crime scenes. It's very specialized work. Somebody needs to do that, but it takes a certain type of an individual to do that. So I think knowing where kind of my lane is and like, okay, here's kind of where I can help and do the best and help the most people. But then pass it off to professionals and try to do the best we can, right? So what place we might refer might be great this year, and then maybe next year management changes and things can change. But that's all we can do is really look at things with the information we have at that given time.
Yep.
So if somebody wants to find out more about you, how can they find out more about what you do? Donate to your nonprofit? What's kind of top of mind that you wanna share and let people know?
So our donation link is donorbox.com/recoverwisely, or you could just go on our Instagram or Facebook and donate. You'll see the donation link on there. Twitter, I should probably get our website back up. I've been editing that, but that's down at the moment. But Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the news stories are Instagram. On Instagram, we also have a YouTube channel. So there's YouTube, um, and the contact, my personal numbers on all of those, email. So you want to get in contact, you want to volunteer, you need treatment, your loved one needs treatment, you need a job. We offer recovery coaching, job coaching, career coaching, um, treatment consulting, sober companionship, transport. We'll get on a plane, fly across the country with you, help you get to treatment safely. Case by case, depending what it is. If we can't handle it, we'll refer out to hired power or sober escorts is who we like. Um, so that's how you can keep in contact. So you follow us. Instagram's probably you'll see everything on Instagram and Facebook. All posts from Instagram go over to Facebook.
Okay.
So those are probably the best two platforms.
Great. You've talked about things that you do locally, and then helping in case by case basis of flying across the country with an individual. So is what you do? It's not just based in Cincinnati. That's where you're physically based, but you help across the country. Is that a fair summation?
Yes, I help across the country. I get calls from coast to coast. I also do business development in admissions for New Res Behavioral Health in Salt Lake City. So from my business development experience throughout the years of behavioral health, from going independent, I'll get calls from Hawaii to New York, Florida, Texas, Missouri, wherever.
Wow. For that person, that individual, that family friend, that looks at your situation, is like, wow, like this is just, it is. It's fascinating. It's incredible. There's ebbs and flows. There's obviously low points and high points, and what you're doing is literally amazing and epic. You'll hear the word epic all the time, but this is like a true superhero. To be able to take the worst of many situations and just power through it. So somebody out there that might be questioning, like, how do I get started? What do I do? There's, Daniel's doing so many things. How do I get started with whatever that may be? Just that mentality. Do you have some maybe ideas for somebody that's kind of in that in that state of flux? That's like, okay, I want to go do something else. I don't know what that is right now, but how do I go forward? How do I reach out to somebody and have a telephone call? And how do I get my story across? Or how do I text? Or how do I get started? Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, if you're trying to get sober or mentally healthy, usually most people aren't stoked on life. Like, hey, I'm thrilled right now. I should probably get sober. People don't usually say that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have to lose? If you're coming out of jail like I was, or homeless, or whatever, you don't, have much to lose. Now, navigating the treatment industry, going to an AA meeting is one thing, but then finding the right treatment center is hard. What I would say is, you could call me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll connect you to the right people, but if you might not always want to call me, and you could put my number in. Or is there an online article or anything?
Yeah, we'll have show notes. Mm-hmm.
You could, look for the most ethical treatment center, a hospital in your area, or a therapist or psychiatrist you really trust, and call them, or a friend that might have connections or is in recovery, and ask them what to do. There's so much shady stuff going on in this field, it's disgusting. And there's a lack of effective treatment, cost-effective treatment. So to find the right route for you can be tough.
Wow. Yeah, and it is. And it's unfortunate to say, with any type of business, any type of venture, there's always, this snake oil salesman, somebody trying to come in and undercut and to do things and just make a buck and not really caring about the individual, about the actual underlying things that need to be worked on. I know I've been lucky with my care team. Obviously at the beginning, I was like, I hate you, I don't like you, you're asking me too many questions, you're questioning how I'm thinking. But now that psychiatrist, 5+ years later, I tell him, I was like, I used to not like you. He goes, oh, I know. He goes, that's part of the approach. He said, you're very hard-nosed, and that's the way you get to break through to individuals. So while maybe at the time somebody might not be super happy with an individual, some of that might be part of a process that they go through. And I think I was at such ground zero that you mentioned the process of navigating to be seen, and then the referral process, and then even if you have insurance, and how the cost, and all these things that came out. I was like, I don't know what else to do. So I don't know that I can really find another psychiatrist, because it's taken me years to even get to the point to accept that I needed help. So I don't want to go back into that process of getting a referral and then rehashing everything, and I find that's been tough too. Is re-talking about the story. I've had to switch therapists. My one he retired, and so that first meeting with that new therapist, it's like, okay, so what brings you to therapy? And it's like, okay, can't you just look at all my notes for the last 5 years to get a baseline? And that gets exhausting. So it doesn't matter where you're at with recovery, and that's why I try to tell people that those things, that's life. I mean, you're not always going to have the same care team. You're not going to have those same individuals. That's nice, but if people are getting older, they're going to retire at some point, or they might move away, or they might get an illness, and those types of things just been really really hard. And so when I get asked oh yeah, you're recovered and you're better, it's like, well, I still have to go through times where I went 8 weeks without seeing a therapist, when for many years I was going at a regular clip. And our bodies, we get kind of used to things as we go through. We're like, okay, at least for me, I like a little bit of structure. Of my body knows every 4 to 6 weeks I'm going to see somebody and talk about things and check the medication and that. And once it goes longer, you can have just as bad a day and start questioning, what am I doing here? What is it worth it? What's life all about? And so that's something that I've found that it kind of goes away with your mantra. Just you have to just keep going, and you have to. You don't really have an option, and that's kind of where I'm at too. It's I really don't have an option other than doing what I'm doing, because if I don't, then the other options, I might not be here, and it's just not a good option. And anywhere in between could be in an unhealthy state, doing more unhealthy things, back to the lifestyle. And I think that's what I try to share along the lines of you, Daniel, is just use that time and energy and that passion of what makes you feel good and what's helping you. And I'm sure with you filling your schedule up with things that make you feel good, of helping, that's helpful too. You mentioned the Google Calendar, so you're able to not have to worry about keeping everything in your head, because that's where I was. I was like, oh, I got this appointment, I got this, and then it was you start missing things. It's well, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so that's been huge. So I would also recommend to anybody that hasn't, definitely check out Google Calendar if you have Gmail or another type of a software that helps you take things that should not take a ton of brain power to do, that you just look over once a day or a couple of times a day and see what's coming up, as opposed to taking so much time of oh my gosh, I know I have something tomorrow. I don't know what it is. Is it in the morning? Do I have to drive somewhere? Do I have to get a ride? And those types of things are what I would say maybe the neurotypical, the average person's oh yeah, that's no big deal. I can do all that. and I don't need any help. But what I'm finding is that the more time I can spend doing things that really stretch my mind and helping and putting myself in the organization and helping others and have this podcast to work with people like you to share your story. Like I can go like a whole week without doing hardly anything and then come in here and tape a podcast and like things are just like, oh my gosh, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is why other people need to hear stories like yours, because as we all know with media and politics, and there's enough negativity out there that it's like, yeah, like we all go through things, but look at what, coming out the other side. And I like to call like a brand new day, that the sun's rising on a new day. It's like, okay, how else can I help? What else can I do while I'm here on earth? Like whether you have a faith base or not, that like, okay, what am I doing? What do I want to be remembered as? Because we pass away, and even famous people after years and years and years, they kind of go, their names kind of get forgotten sometimes. So that's something I've been thinking of, like, okay, how can I try to create a legacy, not just for myself, but like for my family, that my daughter can look at it and say, okay, yeah, my dad wasn't just my dad. He tried to help and do as much as he could with his limitations. What would you tell somebody that gets a call for an interview, that's never had an interview before, like a television interview or a podcast interview like this, where they're nervous, they don't know what to say, they don't know what to cover? Just from you have like maybe just like a top list of, like, obviously like your name and those types of things, but if somebody gets that call, is like, wow, like I don't know what to do, like what do I share, what's important?
Ask of practice with a friend. Maybe Google's great. Google what you should share on like a podcast or something, whatever, that ask the person who's interviewing, like, what's the format. But I mean, practice. Just get a friend or a coworker or someone who's had experience with this and practice. Go for it. Especially if you're young, it's a great resume builder just to say you keep getting quoted and getting on podcasts and magazines and newspapers and on the news. And then from just doing it to the past couple of years is what it really does too. Everything goes on the internet. It boosts your search engine optimization for your company and for you personally. So if like you look up Recover Wisely, or if you look up Daniel Henderson, like addiction, or Recover Wisely, or Cincinnati, or Salt Lake, or you'll see news stories and podcasts for like 2 or 3 pages of Google, which looks great for. See, if I don't want to go into behavior, if I want to switch careers, is go into business development, sales, and marketing, or just entrepreneurship, and I want to work for someone, I could say, look at this. And there's like 15 different articles. Like I could boost your SEO, and I have all these personal contacts with press outlets. You don't really have much to lose. Just go for it. You'll be all right. Believe in yourself. You are more capable than you know.
Yeah, and also the people that are doing the interviewing, they were at that place at one time too. That they're not where they're at just overnight. That they were in those spots of whether it's in class or just get that repetition of what to talk about, the topics to cover, and I think that just remembering everybody's an individual, everybody's a human being. Like they put their clothes on relatively like the same way, so that individual is going to understand. So I've even in some of my first initial interviews, like I would even just say like, man, like I'm super nervous, and the interviewers would say, oh, don't worry about it, just take your time. Don't worry if you screw up. Everybody screws up. Like it's not the end of the world. Like I was where you were, and just like you said, just go for it. That maybe if you have maybe a 5-minute segment and 4 of those 5 minutes are great, who cares about that other minute? Like if there was something that was flubbed or missed or mispronounced the website, .org instead of .com or something like that. Don't worry about it. There's going to be other times that you're going to be asked, and I think that you, Daniel, I can't say no. You're definitely an inspiration. You're an inspiration to me to continue what I'm doing, and I so much look forward to being able to collaborate in the future with you and the work that you do, and we had some conversations about different things with golf tournaments and being able to meet people and interview people, and I just want to again just like publicly like thank you for introductions and being able to have that, because it's important, and I think that goes to show a lot about someone's character, that you're willing to say, okay, yeah, like here's XYZ, like reach out to them, see what happens, and go from there. And that's been super helpful to me. So Wes from Rock to Recovery.
Rock to Recovery, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to interview him when I was out in LA, but he had his big event on December 11th, and so he's going to come on the podcast. He's like, yeah, I'm down. I can't do it when you're in town, but and so like that's huge. Like to have somebody, the organization that has that type of just musical experience and just out of the blue get the text, and it's like, yeah, like this is cool. But I think it comes to how it came about, that phone numbers usually aren't just randomly like handed out, that it's usually like a channel, an individual that go through. So I say, oh yeah, Daniel, and then it just starts clicking. So I can't thank you enough for that, because that's been, I was nervous when I talk about like somebody being nervous reaching out, like that was me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like do I text them, do I call, how do I do it? And it's like taking me back to
Did he call me Daywalker?
He didn't. He did.
He's a ginger from South Park. That's what I called it.
Oh.
And I know Wes, he ran my groups at Balboa Horizons. I've known him since I was sober.
Oh my God.
So that's where his company started, Rock to Recovery. He ran my Rock to Recovery groups because he was like the only one running it at that time. It was small. So he calls me Daywalker. Like when I called him out of the blue, like I got his number, and I was like, "Hey Wes, it's Daniel from." He's like, "Oh hey, what's up, Daywalker?" Yeah. So yeah, no, he's super nice. He's cool. He's a good person to have. He knows definitely a lot of people of influence, and that's someone. And he's an entrepreneur. And just the branding of Rock to Recovery and what they're doing is great. They work with TBI now, people with brain injuries, because music's great for the brain.
Yeah.
The first time I moved my hands in a coma was to music. It heightens brain activity.
Wow. Any particular type of music, or just music in general?
I don't really know.
Yeah.
Mine was the EDM. I don't know.
Cool.
That's what I was told. I don't remember anything.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So we're closing in kind of on our time together today. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want to cover? We got a couple minutes if you want.
Just follow Recover Wisely, St. Zachary's Haven, and New Roads Behavioral Health on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Recover Wisely is Wisely Recovery on Twitter.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Well, thank you again for joining us today. Super. I say super. I'm just floored and happy to be able to talk to somebody like yourself that's doing what you're doing, that's been through things. It's just it's a breath of fresh air to like. There's good people in the world. There's good people out there doing good things, and I'm just excited to be able to share your voice with not just the Northeast Ohio audience, but I mean, going global with our social media channels as well, and transcripts, and again, talk about the search engine optimization of linking names with organizations and with different media and podcasts. That it's helpful, and I just can't thank you enough. So I want to thank you again for joining us today, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Awesome. Where does this air? You said this airs other places?
Yeah, so this is going to air Hudson Public Television, so the Hudson City area, and then it'll be on our YouTube. So the same exact file gets uploaded there. We'll have the captions, and then we'll have the transcripts as well to included with the files. So depending on how somebody needs to see it or hear it or view it, that they have that option. So once we get the air date for the TV station here, then everything kind of falls in after that. So so it'll be in January is when it'll be aired, and I'll give you all the links and obviously audio as well. So it'll be on all the platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify.
So it's not airing right now. It'll be edited.
Well, I'm not going to edit it. I mean, I'll put like a beginning screen and an end screen. But yeah, like we're live now, but it's not live going like to the feed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
You said it was in England or something?
Yeah, we're having a guest next week from London. Yeah, she's in London. So it's gonna. Yeah, it's crazy. It's the interest that we're getting, and then organizations that are finding out more about it, and going over to this format is just huge, to be able to get in the studio and to do something that I think it's fun to do, and it gives everybody that opportunity to, again, just share voice, say, hey, like, here's things I've been through, here's things I'm doing, find out more about me, get in touch, volunteer. Yeah.
Did I send you Brandon Novak's number?
No, not Brandon.
What?
Sure.
Have you called Ted Seeley with Intervention 911 and the TV show Intervention?
I texted him. He says he lives in Hawaii now, so I'm going to try to get him on Zoom.
Yep.
And I reached out to Selena's agent, didn't hear anything back.
Yeah,
What?
it was.
You never know, right?
Yeah, that's how I was like, I don't know what they'll say.
Yeah.
They somehow answered my phone call. Yeah, I just sent you Brandon Novak's cell phone.
Thank you, appreciate it. And I'm going to reach out to Hayden's mom as well. I'd been under the weather and traveling, so that was one person I haven't been able to reach out to yet. But definitely looking at doing his foundation in Jacksonville and getting him on after the season. And
Did you talk to Kathy about that?
not yet, not
Yeah.
yet. I need to just have that introduction text. She was one of the people that I haven't been able to reach out to yet.
Okay.
So I'll either do it today, on Friday, or on Monday is when I'll do to reach out to.
Cool. Super good. Hayden's actually injured. I'm not sure if he's going to be back to the game.
Oh, okay.
I forget what he did, but they're super nice, down to earth. They don't care that he plays the Bengals. Nothing, but they know a lot of people.
Wow.
Like, she's good friends with Michael Phelps, so I don't.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, just people doing good things. They tend to want to know more people that are doing good things.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
All
Awesome.
right. Well, I'm gonna finish out with the closing script, and if you want to hang on here for a minute, and then we can chat for a second and do it. Great. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Voices for Voices podcast. Thank you also to our guest, Daniel Henderson, for spending some time with us. Until next time, I am Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, host and humanitarian. Until next time, have a great day and be a voice for yourself or somebody in need.